Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Sylvie from Sylvie Stamps, and today I want to talk about stamped images. Do you ever find that you get parts of your stamp that are missing? Or maybe you have more than you want? Or maybe like this one, it's all kind of smushed and it doesn't really look very sharp at all. But after today, you will have consistent, perfect images every time. So before I dive in, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you are notified and click on the bell too so that you are notified when I upload a new video, and that way you don't miss out on anything that I share with you. Okay, let's go through the various things that you need to consider when you are stamping. First of all, there are two different kinds of stamps. There's the photopolymer stamp, which is see-through, which is really nice. You can see exactly where you're positioning it. And the cling stamp, we call them, but they are red rubber stamps, and you don't see through them, obviously. So they have different usage, but today for what we want to talk about is the cushioning. See how this one has no cushioning? You just have the piece of photopolymer that sticks to the block, and that's all you have. Whereas here on the red rubber, you have a little cushion here in between the rubber and your block. So when there is no cushioning, you might be able to get away with it. As you can see in this image here, that's another photopolymer stamp, and I did get the full image and it worked well, and you might get away with it just like that. But for some stamps, and this one in particular, I was never able to get a proper image just stamping like that. So the trick is to use the stamping piercing mat, because now I have cushioning. It's going to be outside of my stamp, but it still gives me cushioning. So let's see what we get. So another thing to consider as well to get a really good image is to use the Stampin' Up! Whisper White cardstock. It's very smooth and you get a nice crisp image every time as well. And then I'm going to show you as well the perfect positioning for your hands, how to stamp. Okay, so I'm going to ink my stamp and make sure that I have ink evenly everywhere. Okay, that looks pretty good here. I think this stamp is not even, so the ink is not going to be all even. Okay, and then the way to stamp and have good control is to hold your stamp with two hands, put your hands on your surface where you're stamping, and then press. Okay, now I have full control of the stamp. Now, because it's a larger stamp, I'm putting some pressure in the center as well to make sure that it's everywhere. Okay, and I can, oh, and I missed. Okay, so let's try again on another piece of cardstock. This stamp has been giving me difficulty, I have to admit. So let's try again, because usually doing it this way, I get a really good impression. So let's do that, and let's make sure I have pressure on all parts of the stamp. Okay, I'm still missing a piece. So it's not even foolproof for this stamp. Okay, let's try again. As I said, let's try this way. That way, if I need to do a second time, but hopefully this one is going to be good. Okay. So you have to put a fair bit of pressure with a larger stamp like that. I'll show you later with the smaller stamp, you don't want to put pressure like that. But with a larger stamp, there we go. Finally, I got it. Okay. You have to put enough pressure over the whole stamp on the paper piercing mat. Okay. And that's the only way to get a good impression. Let's try again to make sure that this worked well. This is the way to do it. Okay, I have ink everywhere, and I'm going to stamp again, and I'm going to put a good amount of pressure everywhere on the whole stamp. Okay, there we go, and good image. Okay, so a larger stamp, make sure you have good pressure everywhere. There's no danger of rocking with this one, so it works okay to put a fair bit of pressure. Let's try now with the smallest stamp, of that little sprinkle of a stamp that is really small, and those are not easy to stamp in general. Okay, so I'm going to ink it, and again, when you ink also is another way that you can avoid too much ring around there that really you don't want that part. Okay, so you ink it, tap, 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 and then I'm going to use my 2 hands again, even though it's a small stamp, because I can go straight up and down and I'm less likely to rock. Now this one, I am not pressing quite as hard. Okay, I have a good cushioning here, and using my 2 hands, I have good control, and I'm less likely. If I use one hand, I'm more likely to rock and get a mark that I don't want. Okay, so another tip as well, I use a very small little greeting here that says happy, and I'm going to show it close. Hopefully you can see even through the through my block here that there's a lot of detail in that little happy there. There's very fine lines, and if I press too hard, they're going to disappear completely. So again, and because it's so small, it is again a little more difficult to stamp. So my 2 hands and straight up and down. Okay, and I think I put a little too much pressure. See, you can see it's smushed a little bit. Very little pressure with these. There we go. That should be better. Okay, there you go. Make sure, see, you can see the difference between the two. One is smushed and one isn't, and it makes a, sometimes, you can be, sometimes it's good enough, but sometimes you want it to be really sharp and clean, and this is the trick. Tap, 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 so not too strong. The 2 hands, so I have really good control about how much pressure I'm going to put. And I'm putting very little pressure. Sometimes you have to rock slightly with those little greetings to get the top and the bottom. So practice before you get, especially if you're going to stamp right onto your card front, you want to make sure you're going to get a good one. You could also use the Stamparatus, which can make sure that you have a good impression. And if it's not quite right, you can do it again, because it's going to be exactly the same spot. So that's another option for you as well to get really good impression. But see, happy, 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 happy day. Okay, but if I just stamp like that, you see it's just not going to work. It's very difficult. This one is too hard. With just one hand, I get too much, yeah, it just puts too much pressure and it doesn't work. But as you can see here, I got pretty consistent with a good amount of pressure. Okay, another little trick too, with a tiny little stamp like this one, I'm going to clean it, and because I want to remove it and put it on a big block, like this one, for example. Let's say you have only a D-size block and you have a tiny little stamp like that. So I'm going to put it right in the center and do the, the one hand stamp. Okay, and you can see there's a line. Again, it's very difficult. So if you use the 2 hands, like we did, then you're more likely to be straight up and down. Okay, also, some people prefer to put it in the corner. So to move the stamp to one of the corners like that, and so that when you stamp, you have a little more control on it. Okay, so that's another option. Experiment with that. But you see, I'm still using kind of my 2 hands to make sure that I'm not rocking it all over. But it's a little easier to control when it's in the corner like that. Okay, so I'm getting pretty consistent with that. So practice. Here, there are some tips for you. Make sure you have the cushioning that you need with some of the photopolymer stamps. And even then, with the large ones, make sure that you have enough pressure to get the good image and you don't miss any parts. And again, the Stamparatus could be an option for you there. There is a cushion that is built in for the, no, not built in, but that you can add for the photopolymer stamps. And for the little ones, use 2 hands like that. Okay, then you will have, or like this, you will have good control about how much pressure, it doesn't wobble, and you get exact positioning as well. It's harder to go from here to the paper and know exactly where you're going to be. With the 2 hands, then I can move exactly where I want it to be. All right, I hope you enjoyed these tips. Like I said, make sure you subscribe to be notified when there's new things that I upload. Subscribe and click on the little bell, and we will see you in the next video. Bye for now.